Hey guys, David here from Go55 Tech Tutorials, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make an Ubuntu file server. Okay, so let's get started. So basically what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be making a file server using Ubuntu Server, which will allow users across Windows, Mac, and Linux computers to access their files all over the network. So, like I said, we are going to be using Ubuntu Server for this. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go ahead and go over to Ubuntu's website and download a copy of Ubuntu Server. Make sure that it is Ubuntu Server and not desktop. Desktop will take too much space on the hard drive. Anyway, so let's get started. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to burn the ISO image that you downloaded from ubuntu.com of Ubuntu Server to a disk, and you're going to want to boot it up on the computer that you want to turn into your file server. When you get here, select your language and click on Install Ubuntu Server. Okay, you'll be greeted with this. Choose your language. Obviously, I'm going to choose English. Choose your country. I'm in Canada. Now, here it's going to ask you if you want to detect your keyboard layout. I'm going to click No. You can click Yes, but if you already know what it is, you could click No and just select it. Mine is an English US keyboard, which is the standard for the West. Okay, now when you get to this window, it's going to ask you for a host name. Basically, like it says here, it's a single word that identifies your system to the network. So I'm just going to name this one Goguda Server. Once you've typed in a host name, just click Continue. And you're going to need to create a new user. So enter person's name, or whatever you choose, then the username for the account, and then you're going to need to make a password on the account. Now it's going to ask after you make the password if you want to encrypt your home directory. Since this is a server, it's probably a good idea to say yes to this so that your information stays secure. Now it's going to ask for your time zone. You can go ahead and set the city that is closest to you. So for me, that would be Montreal. So this is where most Linux geeks are going to disagree with me. Most of them would probably tell you that it's best to have one hard drive for the OS and another one for the files on the file server. I'm just going to be using the exact same hard drive for both. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm not going to choose any of those. I'm going to choose manual. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the current hard drive. It's going to say create new empty partition table on this device. I'm going to click yes. Okay, now I'm going to go down here and click on the free space. And I'm going to click create a new partition. Now I'm going to subtract 2 gigs because I want 2 gigs later for a swap partition. So currently it wants to make a partition that is the full amount of the hard drive. I'm just going to go ahead and minus 2 gigs from that. So I'm going to go 104 gigabytes. That's going to be our root partition where we are going to install the OS, unless you are using a proxy to access the outside world. Type for the new partition, we're going to choose primary. Location, beginning. And nothing in here needs to be changed except for the bootable flag. You can just change that to on real quickly. When you're done, you can just click done setting up the partition. And you'll see that you'll still have some free space. So go ahead and click on the free space again. Click create a new partition. This is going to be our swap. So 2 gigs is enough for a server. Continue. Type for the new partition, logical. And we're actually going to change the use as to swap area. And once that's done, you could click done setting up the partition. Okay, so once you've done that, you could click finish partitioning and write changes to disk. It's going to confirm the changes, just hit yes. And this will erase anything that is currently on the disk. Okay, now it's installing the base server system. When this comes up, just click continue. When this comes up, you have a few choices. I'm going to choose to install security updates automatically just to be safe. But if you know what you're doing, you can click no automatic updates or manage system with landscape. When the software selection window comes up, just leave it blank for now. We are going to install a few of these things here, but for now I'm just going to leave it blank because we want to make sure that we have the most updated versions, and there's no point in installing it now and then having to update it later. So for now, don't install anything and just click continue. It's going to ask you if you want to install the grub bootloader to the master boot record. Just go ahead and click yes, because I'm assuming that this computer that you're installing this on is being used as a server and nothing else. If you did have Windows installed, however, and you did partition it for a dual boot system, you don't want to click this. If it's the only OS on the hard drive, then it's okay to click yes. Okay, now Ubuntu Server is completely installed, so you're going to want to remove the CD or USB key that you used to install it, and then just hit continue, and your computer will reboot into the server. Okay, when you're brought to here, you're going to want to log in with the username and password that you made during the setup. Okay, so the first thing that you have to do once you're logged in is you have to enable the root user. So what you need to do is you need to type in sudo passwd for password root. Now it's going to ask your password. Type in your password. And now it's going to ask for your password for the new root account. So type in a password for root. And it should give you that the password was updated successfully. Okay, so now we're going to work on actually getting our server up and running so that our Windows, Mac, and Linux computers can all connect to it and share files. So a server should always have a static IP address. So that's what we're going to do first. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to type in su and then type in the root password that you made earlier. This will just give us full access to everything on the server. Next, you're going to want to type in ifconfig. Okay, so this is going to show all the network cards that are currently being used on your computer. You can see here ETH0 for Ethernet 0. This is what is connected to my router at the moment. So what you need to do is you need to take note of the bcast number and also the mask number. The bcast for me is 192.168.2.255 and the mask number is 255.255.255.0. Just take note of those two things there. So now we're actually going to go ahead and set up the actual static IP address. So what you need to do is you need to type in vi/etc/network/interfaces and hit enter. You will be brought to here. You need to scroll down under auto eth0. You'll see iface eth0 inet dhcp. Go all the way to the end of that and then hit insert on your keyboard. Change the DHCP to static. Next, you can hit enter, hit space, and then type in address, and then give the computer an IP address. So in my case, I'm just going to be giving it 192.168.2.34. That's going to be the IP address of this server specifically, and it's never going to change since it's static. Next, I'm going to do netmask, again with a space in front of it. Netmask, it's the same netmask that you wrote down earlier, or took note of. Enter, space, network. For the network, you're going to want to type in 192.168.0.0. For the broadcast, once again, type in what you wrote down earlier. And then for the gateway is normally the IP address of your router. Standard IP addresses are 192.168.0.1 and 192.168.1.1. Mine, however, is 192.168.2.1. If you're not sure, you can type in 192.168.0.1 as that is the standard, and if it doesn't work, you could come back later and try different ones. Once you have written all that, press escape on your keyboard, type in a colon, and then type WQ. This will just write it and quit it. Now we need to restart the network, so we're going to type in /etc/init.d/networking space restart. And that'll restart the network. Okay, now we need to update the package repository, so we're going to do that by typing in apt-get update. This is where you should see if you configured your network correctly. If you're only getting errors, you did something wrong and you need to go back and fix it. Okay, so when it's done, we're going to upgrade the system just in case there are any important upgrades. Type in apt-get upgrade, and that'll upgrade our system to the newest one. So it says that it needs to get 61.9 megabytes of archives. When it asks if you want to continue, hit yes, and just wait for it to upgrade. Okay, so once the system is done upgrading, now we actually have to install the server components. So what you need to type in is apt-get install, and we're going to install the OpenSSH server in case you want to manage the server remotely by SSHing into it. So OpenSSH-server. So we're going to install Samba. That'll basically be the root for our server. So Samba. We're going to install SMB client. We are going to also install CIFS-utils. You need to install NTP and NTP date. Those two last packages will just basically keep the date and time on the server. So once you've typed all that in, just hit enter. And when it comes up asking if you want to continue, just type in Y and hit enter. Okay, now once it is done installing all of that, we're going to start making the shared directories. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to cd to the root to the hard drive. So you just type in cd and hit enter. And that should cd to the root of the hard drive. Now you need to type in mkdir/files. In this directory is where we're going to put all the shared folders, all the folders that we're going to share over the network. So I'm going to be making 2 folders. Now there is no limit to how many folders that you can actually share over the network here. I'm just going to be using 2, but keep in mind that if you want to make more, you can just follow the same steps over and over again until you make as many folders as you'd like. So in that files directory is where we're going to be putting the folders that we're going to share over the network. So I'm going to make one folder called public. So type in mkdir/files/public. That makes the public folder in the files directory. And I'm also going to make another one called David. So mkdir/files/David. Hit enter. And now we need to change the permissions of those folders so that they're readable and writable by everybody who has access to the server. So you need to type in chmod space 777 and then the directory of the folder. So in my case, files/public. Hit enter. And you have to do that for every single folder that you make. So chmod 777/files/David. Enter. Okay, so you're going to want to pay a lot of attention during this part here because this part is what's either going to make or break your server. So now we need to edit the Samba configuration file to share those folders. So what you need to do is you need to type in vi space /etc/samba/smb.conf. Hit enter. And this is the Samba configuration file. So do just as I do here. So scroll down a bit until you get to the workgroup setting. Hit insert on your keyboard so that you can edit and delete the workgroup. Now this part is probably the most important part. If you already have a workgroup set up in your house, you're going to want to give that workgroup value the same name as the workgroup that is existing already in your house. If there isn't one, you can type in a name here and we can join the Windows computers to that workgroup later, which I'll show you how to do in a minute. I'm going to type in Goguda as my workgroup. Sometimes computers also just have the workgroup name as workgroup, so if that's the case, you can also leave that there. But just make sure that all the computers that are going to be connecting to this server are on the same workgroup. That's especially important for Windows computers. Keep scrolling down. Remove the hashtag in front of Win support, and then change the value from no to yes. Up here, remove the semicolon in front of name resolve order. Remove the hashtag in front of security equals user under authentication. Everything under domains can stay the same, also under printing unless you want to set up a print server. And you're going to want to go all the way down under the shared definitions subtitle. Once you're all the way at the bottom and you can't go any further, this is where we're going to start putting in the folders that are going to be shared over the network. To start doing that, you're going to need to type in a square bracket, and then you need to type in the name of how you want the folder to appear to other computers on the network. So in the square bracket, for the first one, I'm going to type in David's files. Close the square bracket, hit enter, hit space, comment equals David's files. You can just make it the same as what you put up there. Path equals, now this is where you're going to put the directory of the folder. So I'm going to type in files/David because that's the folder that we made. That's the folder that's going to be shared over the network. Hit enter, space, browsable, equals yes, read only equals no. This will allow you just to write to it. You can also write yes here if you want, but it's completely up to you. Next, we're going to do the next folder, so I'm going to name this one public files. Hit enter, space, comment equals public files, path equals /files/public, browsable equals yes, read only equals no. Okay, and you can just basically keep on doing that for as many folders as you'd like to share over the network. So once you've put in all your folders, all you have to do is hit the escape key on your keyboard, type in a colon, and type in WQ. That writes it and quits. Hit enter. And there you go. Now the Samba configuration file is written. So now we need to add a Samba password because some computers will ask you for a password when you try to connect to the server. So what you need to do is you need to type in SMB PASSWD-A and then a username. I'm going to be doing David here. And it's going to ask you for a password. Type in your password, and it should say that it added the user. Okay, so now to actually activate the Samba server, we're actually going to restart the computer here. So go ahead and restart your computer. Okay, so once the server has completely restarted, you don't need to log in or anything, it should be activated. So now I'm going to be showing you how to access those folders on the server. In Windows, the first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that you're on the same workgroup as the workgroup that you specified in the Samba configuration file. To do this, you could go to Start, right-click Computer, hit Properties, and this window here should come up. You could see the workgroup name over here. Now, in my Samba configuration file, I specified the workgroup Goguda, so we have to change that. So if your workgroup isn't the same here, you can go to the Change Settings on this side over here. When this comes up, hit Change, and change the workgroup to whatever the name of your workgroup is. Hit OK, and it's going to tell you that you have to restart the computer in order for the changes to take effect. So once it does that, just restart the computer and we'll go from there. Okay, now once your computer has rebooted, you can access the server by going to Start, Computer, and in the side here, you should see Network. Click on Network, and the first time around, it might take a little while for all the computers in here to actually show up, so just be patient. But after they do all show up, you should see your new server in here. So you can see here, we have a computer called Goguda Server. That's our Ubuntu server. So you could double click it, and you can see the two folders that we made earlier are being shared in here. So just as an example, I'm going to go ahead and save something in here. So I don't know, I'll just put a text document. That's in the David's Files folder. And then I'm also going to do that in the public files, except I'm going to maybe put a zipped folder, just to change it up a bit. And you'll see that we're able to access those on other computers. In Mac OS X, if you want to access the shared folder, all you have to do is hit Go in Finder, go to Network, and the computer should show up in Network. You can see that we have Ubuntu Server over here, so you could double click it, and it'll say connecting. Now, like I said, for Mac and Linux computers, and sometimes Windows too, you need a password to connect. So you can see that we're connected as guest, but if I try and open the folders, it doesn't work. So this is where you click Connect As up here. Just make sure registered user is checked, and you can type in the password that you specified when you did the Samba user add command. And you can also remember the password in your keychain if you want. So hit connect, and now we can open the folders, and you can see we have the new text document that we created in Windows, in the David's files, and the new zip file that we created in the public files folder. Now, if you're using Linux, it varies from distribution to distribution, but I'm assuming that you're going to be able to figure it out. If you're using the KDE desktop environment, if you open up Dolphin, there should be a place in the sidebar called Networks, and if you open that up, you can explore through all the network computers in there. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to make it so that only certain users can access certain folders if this is what you want to do. So once again, you're going to want to type in su on your server and then type in the root password. And for this example, I'm just going to be making a new folder on the share called test. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, you're going to want to go ahead and open up the Samba configuration file again. So you can do that by typing in vi/etc/samba/smb.conf. Next, you want to scroll down all the way to the bottom where you specified the Samba shares for the server. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put in the test folder that I made earlier, so I'm going to name it tests files. Okay, so now we're going to set it up so that only certain users can access it. So I'm going to start off with the David's files up here. Let's say I only want a user who authenticates themselves as David in Mac or Linux, or in Windows they log in as David to be able to access this folder. What you need to do is you need to add another line that says valid users equals, and the usernames of the people that you want to be able to access this folder. You can add more than one, but for this I'm just going to add one. So for this one, I'm going to add valid users equals David. And let's say I had a username by the name of test on a Windows computer. I'm also going to add down here valid users equals test. What this basically means is any user that authenticates themselves as David can access David's files, public files, but not test's files. Whereas any user that authenticates themselves as test can access test's files and public files, but not David's files. You'll see what'll happen in just a minute if I try and access those from a Windows computer when I'm not allowed. Okay, so once you've gone ahead and put in all your valid users, hit escape, type in a :WQ, hit enter. Okay, now for this to work, we have to make sure that the valid users have usernames in the Samba password directory and also on the Ubuntu server. Now, I already have a user account called David in here, which I set up also a Samba password for. So for this, I'm going to be doing this for test. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to actually go ahead and create a username called test or whatever other value you put in there for valid users on the server itself. So you could do that by typing in user add and then a username. So user add test. Now you need to give it a password. So PASSWD test, and you need to make this the same password that they'd use on Windows computers. So if you already have a user called test on a Windows computer, make this the exact same password. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so once the user is added into the Ubuntu server, you also need to add it in the Samba server. So you could do that by going smb passwd-a and then test, and it's going to ask you for a new password again, same one that you used up there, and the same one that is being used on your Windows computer. And it should say that it added the user successfully. So now you could go ahead and restart Samba, or even easier, just restart the computer. And I'll demo what this does in Windows and on Mac in a minute. Okay, now in Windows, I'm logged into an account called David with the exact same password that I set up on the Ubuntu server. Now, you can see here that I can access David's files. I can also access public files because I didn't specify any valid users. But if I try to access tests files, I have to give a username and password. And since the only valid users that we specified for tests files is test, if I type in the tests username and password, I'm able to access it. But without the username and password, there's absolutely no way you could get into that. Okay, so on Mac, it's the same as in Linux, so I'm not going to show you in Linux because it is the exact same thing. But right now, I'm connected as David, so if I open up David's files, I can open up David's files, I can open up public files, but if I try and open up tests files, I'm not able to. Now, if I authenticate myself as test by going disconnect and then connect as up here, now if I go ahead and authenticate myself as test, you can see that I can access tests files, public files, but I can't access David's files. So thanks for watching, and I hope I helped. This was kind of a confusing video, so if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments box below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out my website for more at goguda55techtutorials.com. Also, don't forget to check out my Facebook and Twitter page. All the links are in the description below.